SMTN.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network Link 369. I'm your host, Spencer Presley, and joining me is our very special guest this week. I am joined by the one, the only, Chris Okawa. Chris, did I butcher your name?
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. All the SMT exposure to Japanese really paid off.
Well, I mean, it also helps. I'm pretty sure your Twitter handle is still just how to pronounce your last name.
Yeah, to a degree.
It's so you can really take maximum offensive-ness to when people get it wrong then.
Yes, yeah, and the no excuses sort of zone, 100%.
So, Chris, I recently bugged you recently, as I'm just going to trip over myself. So you can tell I've just really rolled out of bed for this one. You were recently doxxed by our friends at Atlas as taking part in Raidou Remastered. And I was like, I've now got 6 new people to annoy and beg to come onto the show. And congratulations, you were the first and fastest one to come on.
Oh, great! Is that good? Did I sound desperate?
No. I mean, you didn't give me. I didn't have to jump through the assistant yet to talk to you, so I appreciate that.
That's fair. Maybe next game, down the pipeline, whatever it is, I'll
Raidou Remastered
put a few more
2, you're gonna neg me a little more on that one. You're gonna make me really
I'll put a few more
work
roadblocks up. You got it. I'll pretend I don't even remember you.
Oh yeah, it's like, hey, what was your name? John again?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was from the Moon Network.
Oh yeah, you may know me from my work at Collider or comicbooknews.com. Only those two.
Magic.
But yeah, Chris, for anyone who does not know, who the heck are you? What should we know you from? And just tell us a little about yourself in general.
Yeah, so I'm Chris Okawa. I am an 11th year voice actor. Grew up in Arizona, then went to New York for 6 years, was on stage there, and then came down Orlando way, where I live now. My wife is a actor as well, and specializes in immersive experiences, immersive theater, and stuff like that. So Orlando had a lot of opportunities. She got a great job down here, and we moved down here because I worked remote. So that's why I'm a Florida man now these days. That comes with a mixed bag, but as an actor,
self-proclaimed Florida man.
Yeah, as an actor, I have a background in classical acting, Shakespeare, Chekhov, restoration, all that stuff was my training. I went to school at U of A, and that program is a conservatory of that design, and that's played into my career tremendously. Playing these kind of old world characters is kind of my specialty. So when Rasputin came along, that was a real treat. I got introduced to the Cup of Tea team through voicing Vigard in Fire Emblem Heroes, and that was a really special honor. Other roles that people may know me from, again, old world characters like Arkantos in Age of Mythology Retold from last year. If anyone happens to have a crossover with Super Megami Tensei and Madden, I've voiced some of the quarterbacks in College Football 25, and that was a personal treat for me because I got to go to the EA Orlando studios and see all the the Jedi Fallen Order stuff and all that. It was really cool. I also do anime, so some people know me from Code Geass. Rose of the Recapture is Kensei Kuroto. That was a real special project, and most recently as Denim in Mobile Suit Gundam, or not Mobile Suit Gundam, Gundam G-Quux.
Now, would you like to personally tell the listeners how many U's is in that title?
Yeah, it's 6. 6 years. And it's the first thing that we talk about at the top of the sessions. It was like, is it held out? Is it like quacks like ducks? There's these different adages we had for it. But it was a blast. It's my second time in Gundam. My first time was Gundam Seed Freedom, the film last year, also with the MYAV team. So yeah, I've been very fortunate. I get around and I kind of get to dip my toe in a lot of really cool IPs, and that's sort of maybe where people know me from.
That's awesome. I got a big kick out of when I first saw the title for G-Quix. It was like I was hoping it would be like every episode adds a U, but just doesn't say it. So it'll
That'd be
just keep
great.
getting longer as it goes. We're just really going to ruin the SEO for this even more than it was possible.
100%. I know Amazon's loving that as far as selling the toys. They're like, I think I was looking up because I picked up a couple models today, and I misspelled it. I put like a T in there, and Amazon still was like, "Do you mean this, buddy?" So that was really helpful.
It's like, excuse me, sir. I think I know how many U's I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
I always find it interesting, by the way, when like either talking to like actors in general that kind of date their career of like, oh, I've been doing it for X amount of years. For like you, what would you say is like the beginning, or what you would like to be the beginning of your career?
Yeah, I think those are like almost like two things, right, Spencer? Where it's like, what was the beginning, and what would you wish people? I wish people would just, see me just come blazing onto the screen and be like, "Wow, this must be his first year. In his first year, what a year he's had." But I think like I had like pretty humble beginnings. I was I started voice acting for money. Is where I sort of start.
Wait, you guys get
my
paid
story.
for this?
It's a little bit. I was in this I had this pool house apartment in Tucson. It was right next to the airfield there, so it was like just an ideal recording environment. I there was this bunk bed that was left there for some reason. And so I lived in this bunk bed on the bottom bunk, and I almost called my studio Cricket Sound. I almost called it Bottom Bunk Productions. This is like such an origin story. It's like,
I don't know. This just goes to show like where my demented brain goes. Of like, I feel like you got to keep that in the pocket for if voice acting, you either get bored of it, you just be like, this will make a killer porn studio name one day.
Yeah, exactly. When you see that LLC's been registered in Florida, you know what's up.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you're already in the state for it. I mean, you're halfway there.
So I was why it was called Bottom Bunk is I was like, oh, I knew very, very little about recording. I'd spent all my money on conservatory on college, and so I didn't have money to train with people. I was isolated because I was in Tucson. There wasn't a big voice acting community out there. And I was going to record my first audiobook. My childhood best friend had written this book called The Indigo Thief. I was working on this audiobook. It took me 8 months because I was learning how to record, how to edit, how to have a disciplined recording schedule, and finishing out my senior year of college. It took me 8 months, but I finally shipped it, and I'm still very proud of it. It's on Audible, and I was going to record it sitting in my bed and just reading from the physical manuscript of the book. I just did not know how any of this worked. And I was on a blue baby bottle microphone, and I was on a scarlet solo because why? Because those two colors mix to make the color indigo, and I felt it was a sign. Like, it was literally just by the seat of my pants. But that was the humble beginnings of my career. I did my first game pretty early on. It was Heroes of New Earth as the gladiator skin, but it was originally called Corpophorus the Vanquisher, which is a real living person, I believe, in ancient Rome as a gladiator. And so that was my first game. So maybe it was probably in the same year. So yeah, it's like 11 years ago that was my first game. 11 years ago, I got my first paycheck for voice acting.
Nice. For you, especially because you mentioned you were in Arizona, and I'm actually, it's funny, I'm also from that part of Arizona, and we actually just had someone from Fame Gamer on recently, also from Tucson.
No way.
So all seven Arizona listeners out there just really feasting this month. But
Fantastic.
for you, when you were kind of out there, was it ever one of those things of like, all right, can I maybe try making it work in Arizona? And then was it like, okay, well, do I want to do Texas? Do I want to do Florida? Do I want to do California? Like, because there are some choices, especially it's a lot better nowadays than it used to be with remote work for
Right.
it. But yeah, Arizona, it's like, unless you're kind of doing, let's say, like a good example is like I'm doing a lot of like audiobooks, or I'm doing a lot of ad reads, not a ton of like voice studios out there.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, there's like two talent agencies that were prominent in Arizona. I'm not sure if either really does bi-coastal, like, national reach. But I graduated college and then I stayed an extra year to continue to date my now wife because she was finishing up. She was a year below me. And we were always going to go to New York. So we were dating. We got engaged, we got married, and then we sort of closed the chapter, the Arizona chapter, and headed out to New York. I think that was always going to be our direction. I mean, quite frankly, Spencer, like I never imagined myself in anime. I also didn't really have a super clear vision at the time for my career. I knew I loved audiobooks, which again I just laugh because like um fiscally is a very challenging genre to, make ends meet in, and I really admire folks that make it happen. It's still my favorite genre of voice acting. Um but we were moving out to New York and I was like, all right, I'll do this, continue to do this on the side, and then I'll go do, regional theater. That was kind of the idea that I had in my head. Had I been more aware of the different markets, I think maybe we would have had a more bigger conversation about LA. But at the time, I was unrepresented and would continue to go unrepresented for like another, uh, excuse me, like another like 5 years. So this whole world that I have the privilege of moving around in right now was just not even on my radar. We were always going to go to New York and be in theater.
And would you like say like how much do you still kind of follow the theater scene even now?
Oh, it's in my blood. I constantly, I adore it. My mother was a theater actress in New York City, and we had a family theater company out in Higley and Chandler. When I was growing up, it's my first love. It was my Bacta tank, so to speak. It nourished and grew me. Um, so yeah, I'm always plugged into it, and it's something very dear to my heart.
Have you seen anything good recently?
I saw Oh Mary last year, and I am endeavoring to see The Meat Grinder next month, hopefully when I'm out in New York. And I would love to see Death Becomes Her. And there's just a long list of stuff I'd love to see out in New York. A charming thing that I saw recently was was a middle school production of SpongeBob SquarePants the musical, the Broadway version,
Yeah.
and it was, I swear to God, 4 hours long. And the kids were so sweet, and their costumes and hair design was amazing. Like the commitment, there was kids that had like, SpongeBob had like neon yellow hair, and they all had the right hair and had shaved, parts of their head and stuff. And it took me back to my high school when we were doing Midsummer Night's Dream. And we had a colleague who now is like a very decorated theater actor, Quinn Johnson. He had spray painted or dyed he was playing Cobweb, and he dyed a cobweb into his hair, and people were merciless to him. So hopefully that was something that I thought about watching the SpongeBob kids. I was like, hopefully people are generous with them because they look awesome.
That I mean, listen, you tell me 4 hours of middle schoolers with SpongeBob, I'm already there. I don't even need to
Oh
know the
yeah.
ticket price.
Sign me the fuck up.
I had a funny one recently of I really enjoy a theater. I don't get to go to it very much or very often see anything new, but
Mm.
I was describing to my dad recently because he follows none of it for his. Even though he's pretty good at keeping up with a lot of like media stuff for it. There's just always so much from everything, whether it be books, music, theater,
Hmm.
movies, TV show. Like I don't ever blame anyone for not being onto it. But I was telling him, I was like, I don't know how you hadn't heard about that they were doing a version of Glengarry Glen Ross in New York, and I was
Mm.
like, I would chop off so many parts of my body to go see that cast, because like that cast is absolutely stacked, and that movie especially is very funny. Of like my dad showed me that at like such a way too young age, but was just one of those like there's just like certain movies like that and like Boiler Room and a bunch of like those like that like specific kind of movie from that era where
Totally.
we watched all those with it. And I was telling him about that, and he was like getting sold, loved the cast, really into like the director and like what they were doing with it. And then I told him it was only in New York, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm out." He's like, "Oh no,
Oh
no,
no.
I'm good."
Oh man, yeah, it's not easy, and I do hope that the future of Broadway is more accessible to folks, and New York theater scene is more accessible to folks. Also, there might be a tour; it won't bear that same star-studded cast, but that's always an option too.
The thing that with theater, to just completely throw us off the rails, but I'll bring it back, I promise. It is always like I always bring this up with friends who do active productions, whether it be big, small, medium size. I really don't get the hesitancy to just try to release more of those like finished shows or like whatever they think is like that best edited version. And it always shocks me of like how many big productions really get left with, oh well, here's the best bootleg we could find online for
Right.
like
Yeah,
people
they
who
don't do
just
a
can't
pro
make it
shot.
to it.
Yeah, yeah, no, pro shots I think should become a lot more prominent. I think Hamilton's did numbers for Disney. I think that
Well, and the
people
Hamilton one
want to.
is a great example, but also blows my mind. That was what, 5 years after it had been
Yeah,
filmed. Like they held on to that forever.
exactly, and not like they needed more Disney bucks or whatever. Yeah, I think more pro shots. I think pro shots should almost be a standard, for these productions, especially with things being, and that may be a hot take, I don't know, but like I think with things being limited run and cultural touchstones, potential cultural touchstones. I think that so many more kids and young people and people of all ages could be brought into the theater. I tweeted a couple weeks ago to like two people being like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, I feel like so many kids are growing up and being like, I want to be a content creator. I want to be an influencer. And it's like, great. What do you want to do about that? I want to be in skits with my friends. It's like, well, what if I told you there was an art form that existed that began thousands of years ago where you could always be in skits with your friends and other people could see it and you don't have to be famous, and it doesn't have to eat into your life. Yeah, I do think that pro shots could be a real solution to that.
I mean, hey, especially back then, the dislike button was just a tomato to the face. I mean, it wasn't that
Ex-
bad.
It's simple and clean and organic.
And
Uh,
for any of the people, because this always comes up when I bring it up to, especially like the theater diehard kids out there, it takes nothing. I'm never even saying that it should ever be a replacement, just a complementary thing for it, because like there is that like vibe of like I hate when a movie just goes straight to streaming. I hate it. Like I'm like I want
right.
to see even a bad movie in theaters just to
Yeah.
experience it.
Big
Same
theaters
thing
guy.
with like productions. Like I want to be sat there if I can, but it's just not
Right.
feasible for so many people in the world that like it's better to be like, yeah, if you can see it in the best way possible, go do it. But that doesn't mean that I'm sure Ryan Coogler will be fine if you watched a pirated version of Sinners on back of a like bootlegged iPad 6 years after it came out, because if you
Oh
never
yeah.
saw it, that might have been your only chance to see it.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I agree. There's no substitution for live performance. But I'm always advocating for accessibility for the next generation.
Um, Getting a little bit back into games and stuff with it.
Yeah.
With you being in Raidou Remastered coming, which by the way, that being like less than 2 months, still feels very weird to me. But
Yeah. It really came out of the underbrush, right?
I I always like asking this because every production is always kind of different and everything with it. Did you guys have a heads up that the cast announcement was coming up, or did it just kind of pop up one day last week and was like, oh, hey, well, I guess this is public now?
Yeah, fair. We did. Yeah, our representation reached out to us, made sure that we were comfortable with their headshots being shared, and that they had the most current versions of stuff, and gave us the date it was dropping, gave us the source file that we could share on our own threads, our own feeds. But yeah, they're really Atlas. I think is like the game company is the just a cut above the rest, in my opinion, as to giving actors the opportunity to promote their own game, giving actors the respect, paying them the respect of allowing them to talk a little bit about the game before it comes out. I really think it makes a big difference. And, with video games making more money than film and television combined, it's kind of funny that we don't tap into the human actor element as far as promoting the game. There's a bunch of other wonderful venues people use, but like you have human beings that were a part of this and love it and can get other people excited about it.
Yeah, it's always kind of frustrating too, especially because even some companies, for their own various reasons, still lean into the camp of you can't say you're in this, even if we've released multiple minutes of footage where people can clearly tell it's you,
Right.
until it's out or the credits come out, or
The
even
credits,
other
yeah.
weird restrictions like that. And it just goes back to this weird thing of like, but it's all just free advertising. Like no one's ever
It's free
like no one's
advertising.
ever like gonna look at this list that came out for Raidou and be like, oh man, Chris is in this. Oh man, you've lost a pre-order.
Right. Well, and how is that any different from people playing it or looking on Reddit when once it's out and then seeing a name and being upset by it? You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, and it's been nice that Atlas has leaned. It's weird too because they've always had production-wise, ever since they've been doing games with voice acting, they are one of those few companies, especially ones that do a lot of Japanese heavy IP. They're always one of those funny companies of they have to be one of the few things out there that when they put stuff out and it's not dubbed, people get mad.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes, so there have been a couple of games throughout the years that just didn't get dubbed. I mean, heck, even the original Raidou games never had any
Yeah.
voice acting, and that was into the PS3 generation.
Right. Right.
So it's always usually just been a budgetary thing or whatever like that, or depending on, oh, maybe the Japanese version didn't have one. It's very rare, especially back then, of when games like Dragon Quest is a great example. Dragon Quest, for the longest time, I think up until 11, had no voice acting, but with like 8 and a couple of the other ones, we would give them voice acting in America because we knew that would be better than just subtitled, even though it was a
Right.
lot more classically kind of accepted over there in Japan. So the funny one with the Atlas games for it, they've done great work in terms of, I always think, like the production companies they work with, like the localization efforts, all the kind of efforts being put together usually always work into a product that everyone's really happy to be a part of, whether it be from like the frontward facing side, like the actors or the production crew and everything involved. The one
Hmm.
that I was always more surprised is they didn't lean more into, especially with how big voice acting has kind of gotten in terms of almost like a personality driven
Yeah.
side of the entertainment, which I feel like has really ballooned in the last like 5 years.
Yeah. No, it really has. I think like people like connecting to the characters and it's something that has benefited from film and television since time immemorial. So I think it's high time that people felt like they were connected to and represented by and known by the people that are performing the characters they enjoy.
Yeah, and I think one of the like most surprising things that happened recently was either like just at the beginning of the year, it must have been at the beginning of the year because it was for the 1 year anniversary. They got pretty much the entire main voice cast of Persona 3 Reload and did like a
Hmm.
bunch of like little like YouTube videos and like social like cutouts that they did with them all.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
love
always so
that.
funny. It's like that even stuff like that, like not saying you have to like do that for every single game with it, but it's kind of funny. Like even it takes me back to like back in the day of like I would feel like we were lucky to get like, oh, here's a little like behind the scenes vignette of like who's this character. Like let's get a 3 to 5 minute video with like each of the voice actors talking about their character and throw some B-roll up there. Like even stuff like that is kind of weird to feel like a lost medium nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I loved looking at the Persona 3 Reloaded content, and this having been in the can for almost 3 years now.
Oh my god.
I yeah, I I'll say that I was also really excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like they take such great care of their actors. I look forward to what our journey looks like, and I without putting too much of a head on it, there is some fun digital content headed your guys' way for this one too.
Well, I look forward to you guys being forced to play like Fortnite together. We'll get a couple of live streams of you guys doing
I wish.
Sabrina Carpenter dance moves on each other. We need to just really get into like the brain rot. Like
Yeah.
we need the Raidou Remastered Roblox collab crossover. That's really what has to be the next one.
Yes. What is it, like Dress to Impress or whatever that game was? Yeah, I'd love to play that Roblox Dress to Impress mini game with the cast.
I mean, listen, Sega's collabed with Roblox before. It's not impossible that you might see the world's most cursed-looking Rasputin lookalike contest at Roblox coming up soon.
Oh no!
Like, man, say what you will about this Rasputin guy. He had a hell of an art. So he had a hell of a wardrobe on him.
Yeah, seriously, and people trying to invert the wigs to create that really cool Afro beard.
So that was one of the other questions I was going to ask you about with production, because I love when people who are not, it's not even like not really in the know, because like so many sides of voice acting are so different, from production to release time, especially with like how much more popular simulcasting is getting worldwide.
Yes.
The timelines have really truncated for a lot of things, but video games definitely are not one of those. And it's just been so funny of like people realizing, like I remember when COVID was out, like a year or so into it, people were like, oh man, well it sucks that this game's been delayed because of COVID, because like, clearly the game's done, but because there was a really, really funny one of, there was a game that people were really looking forward to that had finished development pre-COVID, like 3 months pre-COVID, and had already released overseas a month or so before lockdown happened, and didn't come out over here for maybe like a year and a half later. And everyone's like, oh, well, it's the voice actors. If you can't get the voice actors, it's not going to happen. And then just me in the back of my head knowing like, this has been done for like 2 years, guys.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it's some other part of the pipeline.
So for you, at least, because everybody is always different in terms of, you guys aren't all recording in person. Your guys aren't all recording in a room together, as amazing as that would have. I miss that art form, by the way. It's the most not needed part of voice acting. But whenever that does happen, you see like we're going to get like this scene, everyone together in person and record it. It's the most non-needed thing ever, but I do love it just from like a greedy production nerd level myself.
No, yeah. Totally. It does make a big difference, right? Like Simpsons and Futurama really led the charge on that. And I think that there's some, as far as video games, I think it's very, very rare. But I think there's certainly still some of it with animation. I'm working on a project that using virtual means, we are all recording at the same time. And that's been an absolute blast. So it is happening some still, but I think so rare with video games.
So for you, from kind of auditioning to recording and wrapping production on your end with it, what was the timeline you kind of remember? Obviously, if it being multiple years ago, you don't have to be super hyper specific.
Yeah. So at the end of okay, so I had done Fire Emblem Heroes with Cup, and then I think maybe 3 or 4 months later, I got an audition request for this character, and I think to this day maybe I've had 2 character audition requests. For me, they're very rare. For some of my really talented colleagues, they're not. But I got this request for this character. They said it was Rasputin. They gave us an actual image from the game, the old game. And I didn't think to, reverse image search it to understand it better or anything like that. I was just like kind of taking it at face value. And I'd heard of Shin Megami Tensei, but hadn't played it. And so I read for it. And that was at the end of 2022. And then at the very top of 2023, I got the email from my agent, and they said, "Hey, they want you for this project with the project's code name." And I was like, "Great!" And then before giving avails or anything, or they were like, "We want your availability," and gave my availability. I was like, "Great! Is this Rasputin?" Because it's very often that I'll audition for something and I'll get something else. That happened with Gundam G-Quux. That happens all the time across, the industry. But I was like, is this Rasputin? I really cared about it because, I really liked the sides. I really like that character as a historical person. I think he's really fascinating. And they were like, we're going to check. And I was just kind of like waiting by the phone, so to speak, of like, is it Rasputin? Is it Rasputin? And then they're like, all right, they want you to hold this day. I'm like, great, day is held. Is it Rasputin? And then I think I waited another day, and they were like, yeah, it's Rasputin. So it was a kind of unceremonious sort of announcement of playing the character. Everyone's busy, and everyone has different emotional investment in a thing. But it's the only character to this day that I was like, is it this one character? Usually I'm like, oh, I'm happy to be in the thing, whatever it is. And then in the beginning of 2023, we recorded it. It was my first 4-hour session on a game at that point in my career. And we got it all knocked out in 4 hours. I even got to play a couple demons. I still have to figure out what those demons are because I have to get the names, because I know sometimes people are curious about that. So I will deliver those names when I figure out those demons. But yeah, it was just, we did it all in one day. It was a lot of work. Christian Lamont is an absolute beast and a wonderful director, and couldn't have asked for a better spirit guide through this process. I will say too, like another inside baseball thing is like I knew such little about it that I was saying Raidou every now and then, especially with the Russian.
The amount of
I know.
When the game got announced in April, I knew to expect it, but I wasn't prepared for the amount of Raidou I'd be hearing out there.
I am so grateful for, Sega on the line, Atlas on the line, Christian, all these people being like, all right, this is our big bad. Here he comes. He's done some stuff, but let's see if he's got the gas. Raidou Kuzunoha. And they're like, all right, very good, Chris. That we're gonna have to scrap that take because it's Raidou Kuzunoha. Oh, I'm so sorry. I swear I did it like 10 times. I did it one time recording a new thing. So yeah, I'm terrible about that, and it's so reflective of my naivete in relationship to the series, but I'm so open to learning and looking forward to experiencing the game alongside the fans this year.
I mean, Chris, I just want you to know, I took that as, if I was the director, I think the pro move would have been, you were so in your role, you were like, what better way to disrespect the protagonist than to just get his name wrong as the villain? And I'm like, oh yeah, like what a power move that would be.
Exactly, yeah, like a bad graduation commencement announcer.
He's be like, yeah, I guess in Russia they just have to call him Raidou. There's no way to say dough over there.
There's no dough vowel. Yeah, no, totally. Well, and I remember, we finished the session, and Christian's like, wow. What a ride, because going through a lot of Japanese pronunciations, attack pronunciations, all this stuff in the Russian, and it had never been, it'd been written down before, but it never been actually done in a Russian voice before. So it was a real fun ride. It was 4 hours of just really, banging it out. And I'm really excited to see it all come to fruition.
Now, was there any copious amounts of alcohol needed to get more into the role, or was that just optional?
Maybe on the back end to just calm my nerves from what I just do. But the Russian accents, and I also have since performed in Russian accent for Starfield last year in Shattered
Oh,
Space.
nice.
Yeah, I play a character Malik Vosh in that. But for me, the Russian inspiration and my experience with the accent came from my first year in New York. I was working with this really artful and amazing um, theater company that was run by Muscovian Russian expats. And so I was immersed in both the language and the accents for like a whole year. Like I did a production of a show out in New York for them, and then we went to Edinburgh Fringe Festival and all lived together that same year. And then did some future productions and installations for them after that. So we were really tight. They were really a big part of my New York story, and I was just so it was a really great way to get engrossed with that beautiful accent and that way of speaking.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, One of the other things I was going to ask, so by the time you, like you said, so you basically wrapped production for Raidou on your end, like mid or so 2023, or like when did you wrap up again?
Oh yeah, just the top of 2023. I had that one session, and then we shipped it. And I'd done a couple big games of this size prior to that, and I was like, oh, surely it's gonna come out by maybe the end of the year, maybe the top of next year, right? And
Well,
then
first
like
off,
2024
I want
comes
to
and goes.
say, very as someone with zero stakeholding into the company, very I much appreciate you telling me that a remaster of a PS2 game in 2025 is a big game. That means a lot to me.
Yeah. I mean,
But
there's
yeah,
a
so
lot
I
of
have to
characters.
imagine, was there a moment, and I guess you may not have known about this, but like it made a little bit of the rounds last year. Did you see that it had kind of leaked around September of
Because
last
of the
year?
achievements on Steam, right?
I was hoping, like, as the actor, if you see that, you just go, finally, it's coming up any day now, guys.
I will say, yeah, it was a little bit of a thrill of like, oh wow, it's like it's still happening. Like I was talking to someone, they're like, yeah, I'm so surprised it happened. But yeah, it was that, and then I think I also just kind of like just was ghosting on the different there's a Reddit thread where people are surmising and guessing what the next remakes are going to be, reading into the Atlas annual announcements, uh looking at the Atlas poll data as far as what remake do you want. And this was always like, I feel like a top three, top four for people based on that stuff from what I understood. And so yeah, when that I think developers continue to be amazed at players' diligence and their snoopery. I was very happy because it felt like it was reflective of excitement for the IP, and that's really at the end of the day what we want.
Yeah, and it was nice, too, that I was glad, because often for me, because I've been covering and working around, like, video games for probably 13 years or so at this point, and my thing with leaks, I always am in the sense of like I'm all for covering it when they kind of come out from either natural causes or just like general gaffes or like oopsies and stuff like that. But it's never that thing of like, if I know X or Y game is coming out in a couple of months or going to get announced in a couple of months, I'm like, there is nothing less fun than like some schmuck in his bedroom tweeting this out. And even
Right.
then, it's like, even if it doesn't like spoil the fun for you, it's like you're not learning anything that's like crazy about it. It's not like it's affecting or making anything better or worse. And it's that one where it's like, wouldn't you rather have that collective moment, again, kind of going back to like actually being there in the theater, of like being there with everybody watching a Nintendo Direct happen, and then this gets announced and
Right.
revealed, and it have that like, oh my gosh, this looks way better than I thought, or like this, like, even if it's not like, even if you love or hate the announcement, it's that collective everyone watching it together moment that's so hard to get.
Totally. Yeah, there's nothing like it. One such experience of that was doing early in my bigger video game career, again with Sega House of the Dead remake. They tucked it in. Nintendo, for whatever reason, tucked it in at the very end of Nintendo Direct with no fanfare, but the trailer spoke for itself, and people were went crazy because they didn't know that was even on the was even on the menu, even though there had been a press release that it was in development. So yeah, it's really fun to watch. Sit on Nintendo Direct, watch the live chat as things get announced, especially if you're a part of them. And yeah, that's what it's all about for me.
And kind of like taking a bit of an aside from the acting side of it for you, how much do you actually get to ever like play games or enjoy that on your free time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Less so these days, but I'm starting to get more into it. I mentioned getting those Gundam figures. I got a couple, a Zaku 1 and a Zaku 2, because Denim uses those in that's my character in G-Quux. And I got a little model kit, tools and all that. So
Oh, you got
I'm
your
trying to
nippers.
yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to engage with stuff more these days just to stay plugged in and to really understand how people are experiencing it. I never understood when people were like, "Oh, I don't play games I'm in," or "I don't watch," more so like Adam Driver being like, "I don't watch movies I'm in." I'm like, "But you gotta." I feel like you have to because um, it's a feedback loop, and if you only understand one half of it, I think that you're robbing yourself of data that you can execute on and get better at it. So if I'm in a game, I'll try and buy it and play through it. Not end to end, but at least hear how everything came through. If I don't buy it, I'll try and watch. I'll scrub the internet and scour the internet for footage to see how the performance came across. Ones that I've sunk the most time into recently is probably Delta Force, in which I play Shepard. I really like playing Delta Force. I really liked playing Age of Mythology Retold as Arcantos. That was really fun. I am gonna pick that back up because my buddy has a parent. I just recently found out has a group of guys that play it like every week. So I was like, oh
Oh,
yeah, I would
nice.
love to join the Discord and play multiplayer with you guys. So I do try and play stuff that I'm in and definitely always watch what I'm in. And it really informs my next project. Really looking forward to grabbing this one. I may I may do the GameStop thing. I think that'd be pretty fun. The collector's edition looks real sexy. Wouldn't hate, jumping on that bandwagon, getting those
Just I'd say
beautiful.
hold off. Maybe send an email and be like, "Hey guys, if you want to
Yeah,
like let me know if you're gonna send me one of these, I'd really appreciate it. Just if you want to save me the
exactly.
250, that'd be great."
Exactly. You don't want to have doubles of that. You can't exactly, hand that off to someone else. So, yeah. So, I have Lords of the Fallen I played, and I have I got an extra copy, and it's framed outside my studio because that was my first AAA. So I always try and engage with my stuff, and at the very least hear it so that I can continue to hone my craft.
Are there ever any games you've been a part of where you're like, man, I suck at this game? Be like, man,
Oh yeah.
I really wish I didn't suck at this thing I was in.
Oh yeah, Lords of the Fallen for sure. Yeah, I'm absolutely just dog water at that. I think Delta Force has gotten really competitive ever since the global launch. I kind of get washed on that too. But there's only there's a limited number of operators you can play as in that game. It's
Hmm.
kind of almost a hero shooter. So even if I'm terrible, there's like 40 of me on the map that I can interact with, even if they're killing me. So that's still fun for me. But Age of Mythology, there was a bit of a learning curve. I know as far as in the RTS community, it's not considered like a super technical RTS, but I'm always trying to get better at that too. But yeah, Lords of the Fallen is literally like, all right, I'm gonna backseat my friend playing this and watch gameplay, but I do own two copies of it technically.
Have you I was trying to think with it with your games, like, are you mostly playing on PC? Do you do consoles, or like what do you like to play on?
Yeah, so I'm keyboard mouse for Delta Force because the console's not out yet, and I just kind of fell in love with that for that. Age of Mythology is definitely a keyboard mouse for me. Um, Lords of the Fallen is PS5 for me. Um, Yeah, it's kind of a blend. It really is kind of a blend.
With with some of the games you've been in, I like it is really like all over the place in terms of there's not really like
Yeah,
a one thing you've kind of been typecasted into, which has sort of got to be nice, especially
yeah.
of just being like, oh, I can range from like even just like comparing like Rasputin to someone like a good example, like last thing I'd heard you one would be Fantasian, be like very
Yeah,
very
Owen.
different
Yeah,
performances.
very different characters, and that was a real blast. I think that, yeah, that was an example of a game that I think we recorded at the top of last year and then dropped by the end of the year. And
It
that was
can
a
be
great,
done.
yeah. We have the
Don't let the
technology.
naysayers get to you. It can be done.
We have the technology. Yeah, that was a really special game. It was a really a tender game to be a part of. It was a final game, as you know, for some of the Final Fantasy team. And the physically modeled sets just translated
Oh man,
gorgeously to digital.
I would kill. That's one of the I loved looking at the behind the scenes of how that one was made of. Like I would love to just have like any of
Mm,
those dioramas. Like I love like little
100.
miniatures and like having stuff like that is just so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing innovation on that game, and so yeah, that was a real treat to be a part of. I feel like I do play a lot of old characters, so like the original version of Rasputin that I had auditioned with um was kind of a little wheezier, a little bit more ghostly. For folks that know that, I'm not going to spoil the story, but for folks that know the story, the grand scheme of it, that was intentional. But we ended up grounding it more and making him a little bit sexier, making a little bit lower voice, making a little bit more corporeal. Um, but yeah, I tend to play a ton of really old guys. That actually started with, but it's not the only thing I do. But if I did have a thing that was a trend, I do play like 50s and up, and that started with Michelle Rojas casting me in Termai Romai Novi for Netflix, and I played Apollodorus, and I originally Apollodorus starts in his like late 40s, early 50s. And then I thought that was it. Like we did the scene, he's bullying the main character, and it's a wrap. And then Michelle's like, great. And so now we're gonna go over to episode, 7 or something. And here he's 96 years old, and he'll be 96 years old for throughout the rest of the season. And I didn't audition with a 96-year-old voice. I hadn't done a 96-year-old voice before.
Just get a couple of
And
packs of menthols and you'll be great.
exactly. And so I kind of winged it. And I went back throughout that season as a, recurring character as a 96-year-old, kind of the Yoda of the series. And and I built from there. So I did Apollodorus, and then my agents started sending me older guy stuff, and I started reading. If I got a big packet of characters, I started reading for the older guys because I was like, I bet not a lot of people are doing this. And yeah, the rest is history. Like Kensei Kuroto, Rasputin's a little bit of an older guy. There's a couple projects I'm working on currently where I play older guys. Owen is an older guy. We would always go back and forth as to like, well, how dead is he in this scene? Yeah, I tend to specialize in those older characters. I think also like I kind of am a bit of an old soul. So I really like getting into that character psychology and really find those types of characters particularly moving. But I am always grateful to get, a character that really is kind of outside of that wheelhouse.
With Rasputin, we hadn't really heard, or still haven't really heard, a ton of your take on it. And with this being a character who's been represented in various kind of forms, like other like shows, movies, and like
Hmm.
things throughout the years, was it important for you? Like, did you try and like keep it as your own take on it, or was there anything of like, oh, I might take like this from one version or this from another?
Yeah, I think that I was really, I'd like to think, folks will have their own opinion. I like to think I was really tapped into the uh, language and motivation of this particular Rasputin. However, like ones that were really, of course, like Christopher Lloyd's Rasputin in Anastasia is really inspirational. Um, and there are a ton of different iterations. I think like with the Russian accent in particular, sometimes it's hard to avoid. You walk this fine line of dripping into like a kind of Dracula kind of Transylvanian sound, and it was really important that we didn't do that. So I hope that comes across. This Rasputin is, he's very self-loving, pompous. That's in line with the historical Rasputin. He's a lady killer. That's also a part of this story. Him in the soda shop. He's just a regular terror in that soda shop. I see the Raidou hitting him in the head with a bottle as he's hitting on as someone. That GIF circulating again. He's hilarious. He's he's a mercenary. So his motivations aren't purely ideological. There's a lot of wiggle room there with his and Raidou's relationship, I'll say. And yeah, I think that I was just really trying to lock in and deliver on moment by moment what, because we don't get the scripts ahead of time with a project like this. We're sight reading it. So going moment by moment and also I think also trying to acknowledge, the magical kind of Super Saiyan moments that he has, keeping it a buck with the anime community, so, I think it is he is a anime Rasputin, and so I tried to minimize external influences that didn't honor that anime, devil summoning Rasputin.
Oh yeah, to our knowledge, at least, probably not what the real one was like. Not yet, at least.
I hope not. That would be so scary, But yeah, I said on a call a while back with Sega and the team when we were recording something, I was like, I really want one of those Matryoshka dolls. Like, you guys gotta make one of those nesting dolls with the sharp teeth, the cursed doll. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, would love that. If not, I'll have to I'll commission it on Etsy. I just love those dolls. I was going to say,
let me welcome you to the world of spin-offs. They're great for introducing new characters and stories into the world. Infamous for never having enough merchandise.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the more colons you put onto a title, the less likely it will be to get merchandise.
You're going to get 25% less merch per colon.
That's why they had to shorten it. God bless them, because I mean, as much as I'm glad I think the name change to Raidou Remastered works. There is something about having the cojones to call a game Shin Megami Tensei : Devil Summoner : Raidou Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army, and then someone to still go, I just can't believe people didn't buy this game.
I can't believe people didn't get it. Well, you told them the whole story in the title. I think
true. For all the trailer complainers out there, like, God, I hate when they spoil everything in the trailer.
It's in the title. Yeah,
it's like it's the cliff notes of spoilers.
100%. Yeah, it's a mystery of the Soulless Army. I think that is very attractive to people. I like the rename as well. I think maybe some of that energy of the titles has shifted over to anime, because I don't think I've seen an anime that has less than 40 characters in its title.
Yeah. Well, that's true, because I think it's funny how that doesn't harm the popularity of anime. Because, I mean, we live in a world where, like, if Raidou was gotten an anime instead, it would be like that time I got magically reincarnated as Rasputin's love child.
Yeah, it's Rasputin's enemy with a really cool hat and also a full-time day job and a gun. Yeah.
I will say, though, you gave me a really devilish idea that it might not be too late to put into the production timeline. We were thinking about that for the expensive Raidou Collector's Edition. You did mention with Rasputin being such a lady killer. I'm like, listen, limited run. If you want to have a Collector's Edition unlike anything else out there, you include castrated Rasputin in a jar. You're selling a couple hundred just on the novelty of that alone.
At least, and then the resale on that is even more obscure.
Oh my god!
You can tell people this is anything, really.
That would be really great too, because it's like, listen, you're guaranteed to make your money back if you didn't want the penis in a jar, but if you did, you are making money tenfold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. By the way, for anyone out there who is not into the like history or may not actually know who Rasputin is, whether you've played the game or not, please look up that man's life. He had the
Mm.
weirdest death.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and look up the song that was made famous by Just Dance, right?
Well, yeah, I was
Um
gonna say, unfortunately, I looked into this. Unfortunately, the people at Ubisoft were not inspired by Raidou Kuzunoha versus the Soulless Army. Apparently, that song did exist before the PS2 game.
yeah. Yeah. It did. If you watch that footage of the live performance, they do the kind of Russian like drop down and kick that I wish I knew what the move was called. It's kind of embarrassing. But the guy does that for like a good like 3 minutes. It's amazing feat of athleticism.
That's true because they don't cut away from that too.
Yeah, no, it's
I feel like
amazing.
doing one of those, I pop at least three knees out of the place.
Oh, I would see God for
So the
sure.
name for it, by the way, which I will totally butcher, is called Prisyadka, which just stands for knee bending.
Okay, Vizhyadka. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad you looked that up. Yeah, the guy does that for like 3 minutes. So there's a rich history surrounding this man's life, the music celebrating it, and the performers inspired by it.
Some other stuff I wanted to ask about for you was kind of going back to the reveal back in April from that Nintendo Direct. What did you think when it was out there of people actually reacting to it, especially just because, like I mentioned, you never really know if it's like, even with re-releases, because not all of them are even created equal, of like, are people going to be excited about this? Are they going to care about it? Are new people going to be interested? Like, what was the kind of takeaway you've seen online so far?
Yeah, I feel like Atlas has fostered such a rich, like what is the hashtag? It's like Atlas loyal or
Atlas Faithful. The funny thing
Atlas
about that
faithful.
hashtag, by the way, we like had to bully them into start using it again because that was like an old email sign up thing. So if you would buy like Persona 2 or 3 back in the day, you would
Yeah,
join their email list back when you had to like write a letter in to join it. And it would be like
really.
you'd get like a little monthly newsletter called Atlas Faithful. And then
I
like,
love that.
yeah, and there was a whole bunch of stuff into it. They started doing it again, I want to say maybe 2, 3 years ago as like a Twitter thing on Fridays. But it was funny, like for the longest time, like that was uh yeah, it's probably been a thing for the last like 25, 26 years at least, and that's like just for North America.
That's amazing. Yeah, I started noticing that, looking up fan art and following the Atlas page more, closely. Yeah, they've cultivated such a wonderful following. They've got a lot of energy, so we've got to deliver, and I think that we do. I'm really confident in the product and the wonderful direction team behind it and the dev team behind it. I like I said, like there's more content rolling out in the coming, runway up to the game, and um, I think as people get to know my Rasputin better, I think they'll be more visible in the feedback. I think like I also, am amongst giants. This cast is absolutely colossal talent on the page, and so I think in the announcement, like I was not, the first thing that people's eyes, went to, which is natural. All my castmates are so decorated in their careers. So yeah, I hope to, as people get to know Rasputin better, hopefully they'll get to know me a little better.
And I mean, I just appreciate not only you kind of coming on here and chatting with me and everyone else with it. I always like, whether it be for like the first time or even like having people, whether they be like whether they be like first year voice actors or like super seasoned 20 plus year like voice actors with it, of like, it's that thing of having conversations like this, I'm always really, really happy how far it goes with people who may or may not follow who's in what and why. Because I think, like, you look at stuff, because we kind of talked about, like, how big, like, personalities, especially in fandoms, have become. And I think
Yeah.
especially a lot of the stuff, like, the gacha games out there really leaned into that, of, like,
Mm-hmm.
that helping a lot of people's careers, but also coming into that thing of, I think, just more people being educated about how the voice acting industry works in most cases usually leads to the better, not only for like the actors involved, but for people just getting a better understanding of it, because it is kind of such a disconnected world of like, all right, well, we're in this industry that also works with this industry that's also part of like three other industries, and it's kind of
Right.
easy to get lost in the middle there.
Yeah, no, totally. The exposure's been great. I think that there's been, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. There's always drama like there is in any culture and any fandom. But I think for the most part, I think that it's been super positive for people's careers. It's given them more visibility with studios. It's opened up new revenue streams for them to go to cons and to, sell on Streamily. A lot of them are friends, and it's wonderful to see them flourish. Yeah, I think that and again, it's like it's that connection to film that I was talking about, where it's like, if a film's coming out, people will drum up excitement for it and go on that interview circuit for like a year and a half sometimes, and it makes a huge difference in ticket sales, and so I think I hope to see games trust their actors to do the same and be able to be a little bit more open about the making of, so that again they can increase people's awareness and their excitement for the game.
Awesome. I'm going to pull up. I've got a couple of questions, and then I will let you go so I don't keep you too long. But while I'm
Great.
pulling this up, I wanted to ask, have you been watching anything or reading anything good recently you wanted to give a shout out to?
Mm. Is it under what umbrella? Just in general?
Anything. It can be. Is it something that people do not have to, like, Indiana Jones raid a tomb to be able to watch or enjoy?
For sure. A book that I'm reading right now that I find really impactful is Crying in H Mart. I think it's a incredible book. It's really powerful, and it talks about culture and mixed cultures as well, which is very much my story. And then something that I watched recently. I mean, I just saw Sinners the second time in IMAX. I really
What a
recommend catching it
flex.
in
Must be
IMAX. Right?
nice.
Oh, yeah. There's no IMAX where you live?
No, there is. I was busy. I was busy the last 2 weeks,
Fair.
um, and now I'm in this weird in between where I'm like, all right, I want to see it. I ended up seeing Thunderbolts first, just because
Yeah.
Sinners I knew would be a harder sell on my wife
Fair.
than like Thunderbolts was. Although things I was not prepared for Thunderbolts. Her getting like PTSD panic attack flashbacks was a fun surprise in that movie.
Yeah, a nice little sprinkling into Thunderbolts, right?
But no, Sinners has been in my top one of like, I have to see it, but I want to do it right. I want to see it in IMAX. So I'm seeing if I can
Yeah.
make it happen. But it's that thing of like, honestly, I know it's not going to leave theaters anytime soon. But I'm also not helping the cause, having not seen it in the last 2 weeks.
Fair. It's that catch-22. But yeah, I'd recommend catching it in IMAX. There's definitely additional audio channels that are made available on IMAX. Like, for example, when I saw Dark Knight Rises, I know people feel a certain way about that, but there's war drums throughout almost every scene of that movie, if I recall.
Oh yeah,
And it's
I mean
this.
the Nolan movies. I feel like he's definitely one of those directors of like his movies are, I feel, genuine, and it is such a, not really, but like from a film nerd's perspective, his movies in IMAX are such a different experience when they're just the standard version. Like I can't imagine
Truly.
like seeing the un-IMAXed version of Oppenheimer anymore.
Right, exactly. And so that was something that I always forget. I hadn't seen IMAX in a long time, and then people like go see Sinners in IMAX, and yeah, there's like all this extra audio and clarity and story points that become available to you going through IMAX. So yeah, I just had a blast at that.
Did you see that video that Ryan Coogler did, by the way, when he's going through all the different film formats for Sinners?
Yeah, I loved that. I loved hearing him talk about it and the passion you could hear, and then of course the knowledgeability.
That's like the kind of stuff of like, again, like, promoting a product doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to have the world's craziest cut trailer. Like, you put passionate people in front of passionate projects, and like it speaks dividends over. Here's this 60-second like short clip.
Yeah, here, 100%. Especially if it's like something unconventional, like film type. Yeah.
By the way, I have already added to my need to check out list Crying in H Mart. I was like, I have never heard of this. I just read the quick little blurb about it. This sounds fantastic. I will gladly
It's
check
amazing.
this out. That I'm a big fan of Crying, and I'm a big fan of H Mart. So I mean, I don't know how you go wrong at that point.
Oh, you're gonna love it. Well, and it's written by Japanese Breakfast. Like folks that are fans of Japanese Breakfast. It's a amazing memoir for life.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. All right. So I've got a couple of questions here, which, by the way, shout out to everybody for throwing questions out there, especially on such short notice. But we've gotten into a couple of different things. So if you asked a question and you didn't have your name read, it's probably just because we came across it naturally in conversation, but I appreciate you throwing them out there anyway. First one actually comes from Bluesky. We've got from Northadamus, who says, what was your prior knowledge about the series before playing the character or the character you played in general, and did any of the historical knowledge of Rasputin influence you a bit? And I know we had kind of talked about the character process in the series for you, but one of the things I kind of wanted to use that question as a jumping on point as well was, now that you've kind of learned a little bit more about the series, are there other games or other entries that kind of have you curious? Just because SMT especially jumps into so many different settings and genres and like story types out there. Like, has anything else kind of caught your interest?
Yeah, I've had close friends that it's just their absolute favorite thing in the world, and those that I really respect their recommendations. They love SMT. I think I'm probably gonna find myself as well as playing this game, but also getting into Persona. I've had friends that recommended it to me over the years, and of course, like one can get kind of daunted by the JRPG genre of like the degree of commitment and the little bit of the book reading required to be truly great at the thing. I think letting go of being truly great at at a game I play is part of my process right now. So yeah, bring it on. I'm a probably jump right into Persona after this.
The nice thing I will say, especially about Raidou, that's been really fun to recommend, because it is pretty niche, especially here more so in the West than overseas, is I think the fact that it is an action game and a much shorter game in general. Like Raidou 1 you can beat in about 25 to 30 hours. I think will also help a lot with people not having that on there, because we just in general, there are so many games coming out all the time, but last year was crazy. Like Atlas had 4 different games, all like 70 plus hour longs. It was like we were just drowning in like having too much stuff to play, which like the shorter stuff really rises to the top for me of like, that's one of the reasons outside of like the IP in general, I was so excited about Expedition 33, because I was like, oh cool, it's a new IP, it's not too long, and the cast looks great, let's jump into it.
Yeah, I've been love what I've been seeing about Expedition 33. I'm really excited for that, and it's kind of funny, right? How we have like these casts that are in this hit game, and then they all seem to kind of migrate over to another IP, kind of very naturally, right? You see a lot of Baldur's Gate folks, a lot of Final Fantasy folks in that one. Yeah, it's just kind of just a funny phenomenon that happens.
And that's also one of my favorite ones of like the natural progression ones, but then the ones that just seem like super out of left field, or like the ones that like seem like a great idea, because I feel like this happens especially nowadays so much rarer and rarer, of like, this idea is fresh, it's new, it looks great, I can't wait for it to totally bomb when it comes out, and I love being proven wrong when it's like when it ends up being a huge success.
Truly. When I think we're just like enough years away from lockdown, that perhaps investment's getting a little bit bolder. WB's investment was certainly rewarded in Sinners. So I hope that we continue to see a lot of exciting original IP in coming years.
Yeah, and I think also, and this kind of again goes back to like the knowledge. Honestly, it's not even a prerequisite of like having knowledge for it before talking about it. I like having that discussion of like, not everything has to be the $100+ million success to be worthy of coming out.
Truly.
Because like I think one of the things I really appreciated was like that tweet after opening weekend Ben Stiller did about like, oh, Sinners only made 60 million. I'm like, no, we should look at that and go, congratulations, Sinners, you made 60 million. That's great. Most movies didn't make that much this weekend.
Yeah, totally. And it's not exactly, prime time for film release. We're still like maybe like 3 or 4 weeks out from the big summer wave, right, of films.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was incredibly well, and I think also if we're talking Sinners, like they had it was something like it was like 90% retention from week 1 to week 2,
Yeah,
where
it
usually
was.
like they're excited for 40%, but
The
they got
box office
90%.
drop off was barely there from it, like, because normally it's either so low the first week that it bumps up because something crazy happened, or in most movies cases it always goes down. So yeah, the
Yeah.
retention for Sinners even on week 3 has been very weirdly high, to the point that I was surprised that they came out and were like, oh yeah, I think in a week or two they're going to put it back in IMAX.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think that I mean I personally, to be so bold, like I think it's like a top 20 American made film. It really, I think, is gets the heart of things, and it's a really special movie. So I'm glad it's doing well.
The biggest thing outside of like I like the production, I like the cast, I like the crew and everything on it. I've heard so much talk about, and I wasn't expecting this at all ahead of time, of people talk about how great the music works in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I heard someone calling for it to be a Broadway musical. They're like, this is essentially a musical. I don't know if it's essentially a musical, but the music is so integral to it that I wouldn't be surprised if it gets like a thoughtful, Broadway adaptation. And sometimes I think what used to be in the past like was like a slapdash kind of like almost a joke that somebody would get a Broadway musical version of it. We see these recent successes with like Stranger Things is doing really well. These adaptations tend to be doing pretty well right now on Broadway. So yeah, I wouldn't hate that either.
Chris, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to our eventual Center spoiler cast. That will be, I'm sure, at least in the tens of views on this channel.
Yeah.
I just, as I'm sure made it very, very clear, big film nerd. Too much to the point that I always appreciate when I talk and go on horrific tangents to my father about this, because he is so weird. Of like, he instilled going to the movies way too much for me at a very young age. But it's always
Oh,
funny of like,
cool.
he has such a open-mindedness to media in a way that, especially for people in his age group, I just rarely see in other people. But the one thing, it's like, it would be a joke if it wasn't 1,000% true. The man will just never look forward to anything animated. It's truly impressive. It's like if he was Martin Scorsese, cartoons are his MCU.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
It's,
amazing.
and it's funny, it's like it's at no disrespect to the medium. It is literally just like, cartoons are for the TV. TV is free. I don't pay for TV. It's like the movies are only for real pictures of people talking to me, and it's like,
What?
I don't know how you could have that thought, but you know what? Good for you, I guess.
Oh my God, that's so funny. It's like such a funny, like such a deadly thought experiment. The cartoons are for TV. TV is free, and I don't like TV.
It's just so funny because it's like, it's that thing of like, I would almost accept it if it was like the really close-minded side of it, of just being like, no, cartoons are for children. I'm a man. I don't do it,
Right,
because that's
right. Just
normally where kind of cartoons get
conventional.
thrown under. It's like, no,
Right.
we're throwing the entire baby out with the bathwater on this one.
That's hilarious. That's so funny. Maybe he'll change his mind, but probably not.
I mean, it's never. What's funny, and again, this is what I always give my dad credit for. My dad could give less of 0.5% of a shit of anything I'm talking about, and he will always let me go off, because he always at least has something to either learn from it, or like enjoys hearing me and my very overly long opinions about things. Where like, he always gives me crap of like, whenever we see a movie together, whether independently or together, he always likes to make fun of me and call me the movie mom, because every time we talk about a movie, I'll just rant. I'll be like, oh yeah, let me give you my quick thoughts on blank movie, and 35 minutes will go by, and it'll be like, oh, thanks, Siskel and Ebert, I appreciate your
That's
insight.
hilarious. Sounds like you guys have a great relationship. That's so funny. The movie mom.
It's like, yeah, it's that one. I think it's that weird case of like, and I know this always happens because like I've always had like a long distance with my father because like he lives out in the West Coast and I've always
Oh, okay.
more so been here with it of like it's that thing I feel like when either with friends or family the space either brings you closer or like it's kind of an easier thing to be like, oh well, I'll talk to you on birthdays, I'll talk to you on Christmases for it. Like I always joke around like my father and I have the relationship of like a gay pen pal lover. Like he writes me every day, I text him or call him at least 1 to 2 times a day. It's like it is
Wow.
very rare I go longer than like 24 hours without talking to my father.
Fantastic. And why would you? As someone that's such a good listener.
The game's story really goes in some absolutely bonkers places that like I'm excited to not only get to actually see again after so many years, but it is just really crazy of finally going into this story that's been enjoyed for almost like 2 decades, and then finally now putting voice acting to it. And I will say, it's actually really impressive because there's a great comparison between the last remaster, also done by a Cup of Tea with Christian stuff with Nocturne. Nocturne was
Mm-hmm.
another Atlas RPG that had no voice acting at all, and kind of had to go backwards into it. And I don't know if it was like through the long gap because they had developed many games in between Nocturne and Raidou, but it's kind of
Right.
funny if Raidou actually leans more into being told with a vocal story than Nocturne does in a way that I think everyone's been looking forward to of like not only the fact that they're like redoing the cutscenes, like all the models look better, the lip movements look much better because there's actually now voice supposed to be coming out of them, that I think it'll just overall get people more invested into the story.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like how spirited the direction is from the Cup of Tea team, like Rasputin gets sassy. He gets sassy as hell. He's a little bugger, and there's legitimately like comedic cutscenes that sing when given human actors as opposed to perhaps like the onus is then put on the player to like, how do I punch up this comedy scene that's written as a you know, in text.
One of the questions I got asked, I'd be curious, especially with how connected you were with it. I'll make this the last question before I get you out of here. What do you think makes Rasputin an interesting character from someone who portrayed him? Of like not like the man like that where actually was with it, but like for you, like what was sort of fun not only about recording the character but kind of getting to know them more through that process.
Yeah, I think it's how rarely he's interpreted in the world of video games. I think it's only like maybe I don't know how many there are, but you look up Rasputin in a video game, it's probably going to come up with this. Um, so it's really cool that someone that is so video gamey has kind of flown under the radar for so long. Um, Outside of that, his motivations are just constantly shifting, and I think that this was people's experience of him, at least how they write about him in real life. It is he trying to make the world a worse place, I think is one of the hardest questions when you look at Rasputin, because he's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if there is a flat answer to that, but he is a womanizer. He is genuinely able to like commune with deeply evil forces in this game and was accused of that in real life. He is really like wit funny in this game. He's super deadpan and rude to Raidou at times too. Um, he was kind of all over the place, but the guiding light was this kind of he's kind of like a cat, He's and I love cats, and so it was fun to kind of try and keep up with him. It's not been my experience with a lot of characters I've played that are that dynamic and that uh wild and unexpected. It was fun to kind of be chasing at his heels throughout the record and continuing to see stuff come up and be like, oh yeah, I forgot that we did that, because it's very much just the soul of the character.
By the way, unfortunately, I have looked up Rasputin in video games and forgotten that he was in I don't know if I would say infamous, but probably lesser known fighting game from SNK. He was in a like arcade fighting game in 1995 called World Heroes, where it is
Oh,
just
great.
straight up a like Street Fighter 2 rip-off version of Rasputin, and like his image of like his win pose is like him just like kissing his thumb. It is the most cartoonized version.
That is kissing his thumb is rough. No, I think actually that did come up when I was researching the audition. I think I searched like Rasputin in video game, and I'm sure that Raidou came up, but there was no voice for it. So I was like, oh, okay. But he was in this fighting game. Maybe this is for a fighting game. Yeah, I remember seeing that, and it's like it has like a red frame around it or something. Like the field of view is a little bit busy. Yeah, I remember that.
There's a bunch of like weird like PC like only games as well from it that I'm very surprised. I also should remember he was in Shadow Hearts, which is another very different take on the character, but from an RPG. The funny thing, by the way, there's just something very wild about. There's some game out there called. It sounds familiar, but I've never played. It's called Thaumaturge, and it's just a very highly detailed picture of like real life Rasputin, and it just says how to beat Rasputin, final boss guide, best version.
Best version, very detailed picture of him, hilarious. Just an actual,
I'm like, boy,
just
I'm sure if only people knew this at 1910, they would have loved to know the final boss guide for Rasputin.
Yeah, I mean a classic final boss, quite frankly.
Oh my god. Well, Chris, thank you for letting me steal you for as long as I did. It was an absolute pleasure getting
Likewise,
to know you
sir.
a little bit more, but also go completely off the rails with you at the same time.
Totally. For sure, for sure. It's a one-stop shop. You know, people know what Broadway shows to pursue, what books to read, you know, a little bit of Rasputin. It's a wonderful melange.
Yeah, but we've gone all over, and by all over, it is specifically only from Arizona to Orlando, but it's a pretty wide gap.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
No, of course. By the way, where would you like people to find you, follow you, all that fun stuff online?
For sure. So I'm still doing a little bit of stuff on Twitter, Chris Okawa, as in the animal Chris Okawa, and then Bluesky is cool. Yeah, that pretty much encompasses all of it. I'm floating around. Would love to interact with people at any juncture. Yeah.
If anyone finds you at the H Mart, you could just say hi. Have a little meet and greet there.
100%. My mascara will be running. I'll just have been crying.
Let me tell you, by the way,
from Milan.
When I first discovered H Mart was when I went back to Arizona. Maybe I think they built their first one 4 or so years ago, 4 or 5.
Oh.
Because unsurprisingly, I'm sure this is going to blow your mind. Kansas, no H Marts, no H Marts in the middle of Kansas.
A little bit of an H Mart desert out there, which is a real shame. We got to fix that.
Well, it's just funny because I went there with my wife, and when we both were there experiencing it for the first time, I think we spent like 2 hours in there, and then it was our last day of being in Arizona before flying back, and we just kind of got washed over by this feeling of like, oh no, we got to go back to Walmart for grocery shopping after this.
No. We got to go back.
Yeah, so it's funny because sometimes she'll just be like, oh, do you think we could just open one? I'm like, I don't think just two of we're not going to franchise an H Mart. She'll do even like yesterday, I was driving her home and she was like, you know, that place would make a really good H Mart.
That is so funny. What a hilarious running bit. Yeah, you franchising an H Mart would be the most complex supply chain hell of your whole life, I'm sure of it.
It's just so funny because it'll be like, oh, so why did you want to open up one of these here? Was it to support the diversified community in case? Like, no, my wife and I just really wanted to shop here.
Yeah.
I really could care less about working here. I just needed one open.
Yeah, we wanted to be the change we wish to see in the world, and they wouldn't import directly to us.
Oh my God. But yes, as I go back to my unfortunate, not my day job yet, of trying to open up and franchise an H Mart in Kansas. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Big shout out to all the patrons who help keep the lights on at the show. But Chris, I look forward to your upcoming Gundam model kit opening stream. It'll be a 13-hour marathon of trying to not glue your fingers together.
Ooh, I'm nervous and excited.
Has anyone told you, by the way, of the different types of model kits out there? Like the little like $20 boxes versus like the $500 like life committing boxes?
No, I kind of divined that the more expensive it was, you're getting more accurate and more pieces. But there was one that I thought was just like a mini, like an Nendoroid looking thing, and then I went
Hmm.
in the comments and they're like, "Oh, such a fun model to assemble." I'm like, "Well, true to form." Yeah, at least they come by it honestly.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next time you're on the show. We can talk. We'll do a 2-hour discussion on masterclass building for Gundam model kits.
Please, please.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Spencer here with a quick little heads up. Uh, Final blooper this week. By the way, return of the bloopers. Chris was a fantastic guest. Not really a blooper, but we had one question I really wanted to ask. The answer was so good, and only afterwards that I was like, oh, this is kind of a spoiler. So, if you have not played or do not know all of the little twists and turns coming up for Raidou 1, please skip this question and try to remember us when the game comes out next month. But if you are at least all caught up on the story and not a crazy big plot detail, but a fun plot detail, please check this out. Enjoy this question, great answer, had to include it. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Back to questions, though, and this one's kind of film related, so I'd be very curious about what you think about this. By Intropic Alloy says, bit of a spoilery question, but only if you really know about it or think about it too hard. Wanted to ask how you felt when you were told that Rasputin is basically a T-800 from the future for this game.
Yeah. So my mind was blown by the regular lore, and I was thinking about this because I was anticipating this question in the future. I can't remember if they told me before the disassembly scene if he was cybernetic. I can't remember if they did, because I think maybe I think maybe Christian didn't tell me until the twist scene, um so that I could have a more authentic kind of, um
Delivery of it.
discombobulated sort of scene. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that scene's absolutely hilarious, by the way. It's so funny. So I'm looking forward to people playing through it and watching footage and play through it myself. But absolutely hilarious scene. Um, I didn't know that, and it was kind of like my hat was blown off, kind of Tom and Jerry style, when just through the regular shenanigans of Rasputin, and then my head was blown up when I found out that he was a Terminator. Um, I literally can't remember if they told me at the top or in that scene, but um, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's just because it's something they don't have to do at all, right? I mean, we're in a mystical era of Taisho 20, you know, uh
Yeah, it's like the last thing you think might happen in this already weird what if world.
exactly. You didn't have to. That's what I love about it, is that they didn't have to do that at all. It could literally just be there's actual time travel in this story. So the idea that they were like, well, we have to justify why this magical mystic from, the 19th century is here in Taisho 20. Um, it's such a small stretch too, because I think he'd only been dead by like the 1920s. Like I think he'd only been dead like maybe like what, like 15 years or something.
Mhm.
So they were like, how do we bridge this 15-year gap? Oh, he's a robot. It's really funny, but that, what I was alluding to before, that's why I think, hell, maybe it was even in the breakdown of the character. I don't think it was, though. I think they were like, this is Rasputin. Uh, but I wanted to reflect that in the voice. And there are some moments that are a little bit, like are a little bit more like bifurcated and kind of mechanical, by intention. But I think it's one of the funniest twists in video games of all time. I think because it's so unnecessary and it just adds so much.